What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I want to talk anomalies. You see, the lovely Luke Olsen has gone and shared another post over on the Facebook group, and he's collated the numbers of all of these there anomaly cards. And I thought it would be fun to have a little bit of a gander. We can see which is the most common anomaly, which is the rarest anomaly, and which anomaly is most likely to turn up in which house. Now, I do need to issue a word of warning here, and that is very simply, we don't actually know. And that's not being rude, it's that we only know for scanned decks. There are plenty of unscanned decks that players will buy and not bother scanning into the app that would distort the data a little bit, but we have enough of a sample size that we can have a little bit of a gander and a little bit of a play. I suppose we could also add in here there are plenty of printed decks from Worlds Collide that have yet to actually be sold. Now, I probably should mention I did do a top 10 rundown of all 10 of the anomalies. There are exactly 10. It made for a nice, easy top 10. And it's also worth noting that there's not a huge amount of variance between them. The least common one has appeared 666 times, literally the devil apparently, and the most common one has appeared 745 times, less than 100 more, so they're all out and around there, but let's have a roll. Apparently, the most common is Nizak the Forgotten, which has appeared 745 times. Nizak the Forgotten, it's all right as far as cards go. 6 power, no armor, and it's invulnerable while fighting, which is nice, because it's whether you're attacking or defending. But then again, when you destroy a creature, it goes to your opponent's hand, which if they've got a coming into play ability, is a bad thing. Now, Nizak the Forgotten actually appears most commonly in Shadows, where it turns up 125 times, and is least likely seen in Brobnar with 76. I mean, given that Brobnar is a fighty house, right? This is where you would want Nizak the Forgotten, but apparently not. I have put the full stats on the board again. I did not get these. Credit to Luke Olsen. The second most popular among them is Infomancer, another one that we're not totally in love with. Infomancer is 3 power, 0 armor with elusive. When you play it, you graft an action card from your hand onto it. You basically attach it. And when you reap, you get to trigger the play effect of an action card. Good news, you get to trigger that action card multiple times, especially if it's a good one. Bad news, it's a 3 power creature, and even though it's got elusive, so you have to attack it twice, the reality is your opponent is often going to take it down before you get any real benefit of it. And it turns out that Infomancer most often turns up in Brobnar, 118 of them out there. Shadows only 96, so I mean, it's kind of cool to think that of all the Worlds Collide decks that have been sold, and we're measuring in the hundreds of thousands at this point, there's kind of 100 roughly of each individual anomaly in each house. That's kind of cool to me. The third most popular is Lateral Shift, and we like Lateral Shift. Lateral Shift is amazing. When you play it, you look at your opponent's hand and play a card from their hand as if it were yours. 725 of these have been found out in the wild. And what's amazing about Lateral Shift is several things. Your opponent loses a card, you get to play an extra card, which might not only be out of house, but might literally be out of your deck. It's not just that you're playing a discard, and it's not a dis turn. It's that you're playing a discard and you don't even play dis. It's so good. Now, Lateral Shift doesn't have a huge range there, but it looks like it comes up in the Saurian Republic most often with 110, and comes up in dis least often, sitting there with 94. The fourth most popular here is Orb of Wonder. Orb of Wonder is quite good. Orb of Wonder, it's got an Omni ability. No, it's very good. I'm looking at it again, it's very good. You sacrifice it and search your deck for any card. My problem with it is, if your opponent plays any kind of artifact hate like Hawk, they can get rid of it before you ever actually use it. But then again, it's a phenomenal card because you get to search any card. We don't get that in Keyforge. We don't usually get cards that just let you search for anything you like. It's quite ridiculous. Now, Orb of Wonder here has come up 716 times in total, and it's come up most often again in the Saurian Republic, with 118 appearances, least likely to turn up in logos, evidently. Now, the fifth most popular is the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper is the one that came around, well, it was the first one we actually saw. It was the one that introduced us to anomalies. 4 power, 0 armor, and if you are haunted, that is to say there are 10 or more cards in your discard pile, it enters play ready. Now, when you reap, you get to purge an enemy creature and a friendly creature. And the thing is here, I don't know. Because on the one hand, purging an enemy creature, good. Purging a friendly creature, bad. There are going to be plenty of times where you can do more bad to them by purging an enemy creature than you do to yourself. But then there's going to be times where it's the other way around. So, yeah. Might be good, might be bad. Now, the Grim Reaper has come along most often in Dis, and this one has a really wide range. Least often in Brobnar with 74 appearances, most often in Dis with 130. That is not the little bit of gap we see in some of them. That is a huge, huge difference. Might be a coincidence, but Dis are the house that like to purge more than any other. I'd like to think that that is deliberate. I don't know, but I'd like to think so. The fifth least popular is the Red Baron, and I'm still convinced that the Red Baron is a harbinger of a future pirate race, and you can't talk me out of it. 4 power, 1 armor, while your red key is forged, you get to steal an amber when you reap. While your opponent's red key is forged, you gain elusive. 4 power, 1 armor with elusive, and when you reap you steal 1 is good. 4 power, 1 armor is fine. It's alright. Now, the Red Baron has turned up 702 times, most regularly in Shadows, though it is extremely close. 113 in Shadows, 112 in the Star Alliance. Least likely to turn up in Untamed. Untamed don't do stealing. Now, again, I love that this is most popular in Shadows. Shadows are the stealing house. I want this to be a thing. I want the algorithm to put this in Shadows most often because of the stealing, and it might not be, but oh, I really hope it is. There are a couple that make sense. The fourth least popular here is Ghostform. Ghostform is an upgrade, the only anomaly upgrade we actually got in Worlds Collide. Gives you an amber bonus, and the creature gains invulnerable, which is to say it cannot be destroyed or dealt damaged. But when you fight or reap, you archive Ghostform. So what you really want to do is put this on a creature that has an action, and then it's invulnerable. Good times. Ghostform has appeared a shade under 700 times at 698. Most likely to turn up either in Logos or in the Saurian Republic, it's a tie. Least likely to turn up in Brobnar, which again is a little bit sad. Brobnar is the fighty house, so giving yourself invulnerable when you're running into a fight, that could work, ladies and gentlemen. That could be good. The third least popular is VALOOCANT, and I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this is not one that is really good enough to warrant being so rare. 6 power, 0 armor. When you fight or reap, you exhaust an enemy creature and each of its neighbors, so 3 in a row, that's good. Side note, definitely a harbinger of that future fish race, which we know is coming. But when the tide is low, VALOOCANT cannot be used. For the time being, that means nothing. The tide is not a mechanic, but at some point in the future, it will be. And then VALOOCANT will just be way worse. And that will kind of suck. Now, VALOOCANT has appeared 695 times, most often in Shadows. There's no real relevance there. Least often in the Grand Star Alliance. So apparently the Grand Star Alliance are up for all races, unless you're a fish person. Although Lateral Shift seems to show a fish person in a Grand Star Alliance uniform, so maybe I'm reading this into a little bit too much. Memolith is the next to least most popular. It's turned up 693 times, and Memolith is the other one that's got this graft mechanic. It's got an action where you graft an action card from your hand onto it, or trigger of the play effect of an action card onto it. Now again, just like we said with Infomancer, this means you can potentially trigger the effect of an action card many times, but it also means that you've got to play your artifact, hope your opponent doesn't get rid of it. Second turn, and bearing in mind you can only use it on the right house, so second turn with that house, graft an action card, hope your opponent doesn't get rid of it, and the third time you pick that house, you finally get to actually use it when you could have just used the action card first time round. It lets you use a card out of house and lets you use it multiple times, and using something like a key charge multiple times could be absolutely game breaking, but then by the same token, you're asking several turns for this to actually get up and work, and I'm not sure I'm a huge fan. Now, if we have a little bit of a look at Memolith, it appears most often again in the Saurian Republic, Go Saurian Republic apparently, 112 appearances, and it turns up least often in Shadows. Boo, hiss, etc. And that means that by process of elimination, the least common, the rarest one in there, must be Timequake. And I adore Timequake. When you play it, you get an amber bonus, but you also shuffle each friendly card in play into your deck and draw a card for each card shuffled into your deck in this way. You get rid of everything on board, but you draw a whole bunch of cards. If you've got something like a Key Abduction or a Data Forge, whereby it's easier to forge if you've got lots of cards in your hand, this is amazing. Outside of that, it can be incredibly risky, but it basically lets you reset your board, and that's kind of fantastic. Count me as a fan of Timequake. Plus, it's got OP on. Who doesn't like OP? If anyone out there doesn't like OP, I don't think I really want to meet you. Now, it's got 666 appearances, so literally the devil. Most likely to appear in either Dis or the Saurian Republic, 108 appearances. Least likely to appear again in Shadows, so Shadows seeing a little bit of not love. Having said that, 82 Shadows, 84 Star Alliance, 86 Untamed. It's not like it never appears in Shadows and always appears in everything else. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the anomalies, how often they appear and which houses they appear in. One last shout out to the lovely Luke Olsen for sharing this information and making my life much, much easier. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know your anomaly stories. Which ones have you pulled? How have you used them? Which ones do you like? And tell me which anomaly you want and which house you want to draw it in. Go nuts in the comment section, but please remember the rules. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Keyforge and frankly any other games that take our fancy. And do please consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching Wossy Plays.